Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to show you an entertaining game today from the 6th round of the Sunway Sitges Chess Festival. This game is played between two Spanish Grandmasters, Lopez Martinez and Alonso Rosell. Both players had 4.5 out of 5 heading into this game. Martinez had white pieces, Alonso had black. The game opened with d4, and we have the Queen's Gambit decline, Knight f6, Knight c3, and here black played Bishop to b4, so going for the Ragozin variation. So I'm going to go through the next few moves quite quickly. Knight bd7, Queen to c2. So there are a few ways for black to play this position. He can castle, he can play c5 trying to undermine white center, but here Alonso played g5 breaking the pin. And this is perhaps the most aggressive option for black. So the idea here is that black will go knight to e4 to try and win the bishop pair. Knight d2 played, knight takes g3, h takes g3, and here Alonso played c6. So that helps to solidify black's center. Here a3 played, and there was a game between Bacrot and Grishuk where Grishuk played bishop takes c3, Queen e7, e3, knight f6, and here c4 from Bacrot. So Grishuk actually went on to win that game. So after a3, black decided to drop the bishop back and keep his bishop pair. So e4 was played, striking in the center. Knight b6, opening out the bishop. So here, previously, e takes d5 has been played, but not at a grandmaster level. Black recaptured with the knight, bishop c4, bishop e6, but here black seems solid. There are some questions about where this king might go, but here white does have an isolated pawn on d4, and black has a very nice blockading square on d5. So he should be okay here. So after the move knight b6, here e5 played by Martinez. So this is actually the novelty in the position. And the idea here is that you just give this queen more scope on this diagonal. So there could potentially be some queen g6 if f7 were to fall. So here white also has ideas of maybe castling queenside and then trying to play for an attack in the center with f4 and f5. But here after knight b6, after e5, excuse me, bishop e6, instead of going for the plan that I have just mentioned, Martinez played knight to b3. So what this does is that it stops black from trying to undermine the center with c5 and open up the position for his two bishops. So here knight to c4 played, bishop d3, b5. Black tries to cement the knight here, but this move does make black's structure a bit shaky after a4. So queen to b6 was played just to give more protection to b5. But after the exchange, white gets the open a file for his rook, and in some cases the rook can infiltrate on a6. And this is already quite dangerous for black. In fact, here the move f4 is pretty strong, threatening f5. So let's look at some possible variations. So here f5 is threatened, followed by taking on d5. So let's say rook to d8, f5 anyway, bishop c8, with a very promising position for white. So something like this could follow. Queen f2, bishop g5, possibly threatening bishop e3, so white would take the knight, and the knight comes in on a nice square. So here white has a very nice position. This knight on c5 completely dominates the bishop on c8. So black has to be careful about not allowing this rook in on a6. a7 is a target for white, also d5. So very unpleasant for black. And he cannot challenge the knight with bishop e7 because then white would play f6, followed by queen g3 and queen to g7. Let's go back to the game. So after c takes b5, instead of going f4, here Martinez played the bishop to f5. Black responded with h5. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this move is, but maybe black could have played here castles queenside to get his king to safety. Because after h5, here white had to move knight to c5, putting more pressure here, and this is already very dangerous for black. Let's look at one of the possible variations. So here white takes on e6, and this allows the queen to enter on g6 with check, king d7, and here rook to a6, so threatening this. Let's say black blocks with the knight. Here white can simply castle, followed by bringing the rook over to a1, and white will crash through on a7. So after the move h5, knight c5 is very strong. But here white played bishop takes e6. This is actually still very dangerous. So perhaps here it was better to take with the queen, not to allow the queen to come into g6, but this does give up the pawn on b5. Back to the game, here f takes e6 was played. So here queen g6 check, king to d7, and here again knight c5 is possible. If bishop takes c5, d takes, then here again the idea of rook a6, and if knight b6, then white can castle with the similar idea of rook f to a1. But here after king to d7, let's go back to the game, white made a misjudgment and he played queen to g7, pinning the bishop and probably intending knight c5 on the next move. But this is a bit slow. It now allows black to coordinate with rook a to g8. So here white could admit his mistake and play queen to f7, although he has no more advantage here. But here white carried on with knight c5 check, and king to e8. So white probably missed this move because this move traps the queen. f7 is now controlled by the king, excuse me. So here white tried to carry on with rook takes h5. Rook takes g7, rook takes h8, king f7, b4, but black is simply up too much material in this position. Here just bishop takes c5. This dulls any chances for white. Queen b7. White tries to fight on with rook to h6. b4 played. Knight to b5. One last trick. If queen takes b5, then white has rook takes a7. And here white escapes with at least a perpetual. Black can try to run away. So here if king to h5, then there's f4 threatening rook h7, followed by rook g5 mate. So let's say king h6, then you can take with the pawn, rook h7, king g4, and king f2, protecting g3, and what would follow is rook h4 and rook to f4. So going back here, let's say black tries king to f5. After rook takes g8 check, king f5. Then here f3, this takes away the e4 square, and now white is threatening rook f7 mate. So black has played knight takes e5. But here, black is the one that has to be careful. So here queen to d3 just to cover this square. So now this isn't mate because the queen simply takes, but here white has rook to a8. This threatens mate with rook to h8. And now black is the one that has to give perpetual with the queen. So going back to the game, after knight b5, black saw this and he played b3. Knight d6 check played. And b2. And now it's just all over for white. Rook to b1, and here queen to b4 check. And Martinez resign. What would soon follow is queen c3 and queen to c1. So that goes to show you that you always have to be careful when you have the initiative, because even a few mistakes can cause the tables to turn against you. So after this win, Alonso Rosell joins Armenian Grandmaster Manuel Petrosian in the lead with 5.5 out of 6 points. There are 4 more rounds left to play. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.